Hi, welcome to the Shepherd's Rest Doc Talk. This is episode 195B.
I'm Cam and this is Jilly.
Yes, this is the Acts portion of our weekly discussions, and we are following the apostles after the death, burial, and resurrection of the Master Yeshua. Our Master Yeshua. And don't mean to make it sound like it's their master, but not ours.
Yeah,
exactly. All right, but so we are in 21. We've been in 21 for a couple of weeks. We're still in 21, but we are going to move to 22 today. Yay! Moving on out. So last week we saw Paul returning to Jerusalem for the first time in a very long time. And he met with James and the other apostles, and they, said, look, all these people, there's all these rumors about you. We've got to do something to put an end to it. So they devised a plan where he would pay for and go through the
Nazarite vow.
The ending of the Nazarite vow with the sacrifices and the purification. All right. Okay. So that's where we're picking up in 27. It says, and when the 7 days were almost ended. All right. So I'm just going to stop there because that's where we're picking up. Okay. But first I want to give you some background information of what's been going on in the Roman Empire in the last 10 to 15 years.
Okay.
All right. So back in Acts 9:23, I believe, I apologize, I did not put it down, but I'll write it right here. I believe it's around 9:23. It said, and the apostles enjoyed peace and they were growing.
Okay.
All right. So the way.
Okay.
And this, like I said, way back in 9, this was right after Paul was kicked out of Jerusalem.
Oh,
not kicked out, but urged to leave
Yes.
Jerusalem. And I am not sure if he's been back since. I think he has, but I'm not sure. Because this is when he came back and he was no, he came back in Acts 15.
Back. Yeah.
Acts 15. Never mind.
Say.
But okay, so he does come back in Acts 15, but this is when he was really got the epiphany that I am going to the Gentiles.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to be going out. So at that time, there was a high priest called Jonathan. His name was Jonathan, and he was the son of Annas. All right, so he was from the house of Annas.
Same group.
So Annas died somewhere in the 30s or 40s AD. Jonathan resumed his position. Okay, so somewhere by the time 52 AD came around, Ananias was the high priest. All right, so he was Ananias, the son of Nebadius. All right, I'm not sure what house, maybe Caiaphas, I don't know. Oh. But he was enemy rival to the house of Annas. I know that.
Oh, okay.
Because the Roman Empire, whoever was in charge, or even Agrippa sometimes would take one out and put someone from the rival because he's not getting his way with that one. And then the other one would get it together and start paying more money, and then they would be put in charge.
It's totally political. There was no God appointment here at all.
Right. It was absolutely political.
Except for the Lord allowed those people to be there, but it wasn't like he's like, oh, I like you.
Right. So in 52 AD, Ananias, like I said, was the high priest, and the riots were happening with the Samaritans. They were rioting. I think they were as the pilgrims were leaving, they were ambushing them, and lots of bad things were going on. It was a particular instance, and so Agrippa II sent Jonathan and Ananias to Rome to testify for the Jewish people. So Claudius was the emperor at the time. He was married to Agrippina. Okay. This is before Nero. Remember how? Anyway, we're not going to talk about that. That was Claudius's son, I believe, Nero.
Yeah.
Yes. And so they were sent to testify for the Jewish people in front of Claudius because they were afraid they were going to side with the Samaritans. All right, so they were sent over, so they got in goods with Agrippina, and Agrippina said, all right, well, I will help you if you'll help me. So Claudius's most trusted advisor, his name was Paulus, and he wanted his brother Felix to become the procreator over it's not procreator, but procreator over the Galilee area, all of Judea, all of that area. So Jonathan, being the chief priest, recommended that. So Claudius was like, okay, and what would you like in return? So Jonathan said, I want you to kick Ananias out of the high priesthood. So Jonathan was reinstated.
Gotcha.
That's where we are in this story that I'm telling you. So now we have the Claudius ruled in favor of the Jewish people. He punished Commanus and the Samaritans.
Okay.
Felix is the procurator, and Jonathan is the high priest.
All right, Felix is who Paul later stands before.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. All this is going to come into play. There's
Okay.
a reason why I'm telling you this story. It's not just for the fun of it, because it is all going to come into play. So Jonathan and Felix are constantly butting heads because Felix is ruthless, he's mean, he's sadistic, and he loves to just torture the Jewish people for no reason. So Jonathan does not like that because he is the high priest to the Jewish people.
Right.
And he gets a bad rap every time Felix does something because he was put there at the same time
gotcha.
Felix was as a deal.
So they look like a package deal.
Partners. Yes,
Yeah,
they look like
they're
partners.
not.
So Jonathan was constantly trying to separate himself from Felix and, as much distance as possible in how they ruled and what they believed and everything else. So Felix didn't like that. He didn't like being put to shame in front of the Jewish people by the high priest. So he devised a plan, and he got Jonathan's most trusted friend, his best friend. He bribed him to bring zealots in to kill him, or to get zealots on board to have him killed.
Am I hearing a little bit of Julius Caesar's story here?
Yeah.
It's
So
everything.
what happened was he brought the zealots in. He didn't tell them what was going to happen. He just said, hey, I'm just going to bring you in, and we need to do away with Jonathan. So he didn't tell him
That'd be like
who
you
was
saying
doing.
you wanted to kill me or me wanting to kill you.
Yeah,
What's
so
wrong
I
with
brought
us?
all your enemies
Them.
in, disguised them as pilgrims coming to the temple to worship. So that's how they got into the temple area. They were coming as worshipers. They had daggers in their cloaks, and they killed Jonathan. Well, the plan worked beautifully, so then became the norm. This became how the zealots were going to get away with and conquer their enemies. The funny thing is, the zealots were like, "Yeah, we're gonna stick it to Rome," because that's what it was about, conquering Rome, right? Not even realizing they were being paid by Rome,
to do
by
the dirty
Felix
work.
to do this. They thought they were being,
Oh, that makes sense because Rome put Jonathan in. So,
Yeah.
of course, Rome put them all in. But still, they
Right.
think, we're going to take out the man you put in place.
That's right.
That makes sense.
That's exactly
Okay.
right.
All right.
And Ananias was put back into position after that. Okay. But Jonathan was very sympathetic to the way. He did not have his father's, anger and hatred towards them. So that's where we are at now. I needed
Jonathan's
you to all
dead
know
now.
that. So Jonathan is dead. It's been about 3 years.
Okay.
And the zealots are still constantly going about thinking they're going to conquer by this way, by coming into the courts and disguising themselves as worshipers to harm the Jewish people. So tensions are high with Paul coming in already.
And just a side note, one of the things about the Zealots is they had the mentality that if they could create the problem, then the Messiah would have to come. I mean, that was a part of it.
Really?
Sound familiar?
Yeah. So there was a man from Egypt, and they don't know his names. They don't know his name. He was just called the Egyptian. And he was from Alexandria, and he showed up to Jerusalem about 3 years before this, right after the killing of Jonathan. He showed up and proclaimed himself as the Messiah. And he gathered 4,000 people. They went out into the wilderness, and then they were he said, if you will follow me to the Mount of Olives, a big earthquake is going to split the mount, and you will be able to walk in and take over Rome. Knowing the prophecy in Zechariah, they're like, oh,
right.
Okay, all right, let's do it. So they marched in, and Felix was ready for them. He had soldiers at every post. They killed 400, took 200 captive, and the rest were dispersed, and the Egyptian escaped. All right, so all of that information is needed so we can go through 21. All right, so let's start in 27. It says, and when the 7 days were almost ended, The Jews from Asia, now remember, this is where Ephesus is. The Jews from Asia, seeing him in the set-apart place, were stirring up all the crowd, and they laid hands on him, crying out, "Men of Israel, help! This is the man who is teaching all men everywhere against the people and the Torah and this place. And besides, he also brought Greeks into the set-apart place and has profaned the set-apart place." Because they had previously seen Trophimus, the Ephesian, with him in the city, whom they thought that Paul had brought into the set-apart place. And the entire city was moved, and the people rushed together, seized Paul, and dragged him out of the set-apart place, and immediately the doors were shut. So they could sense a riot. They know what's going to happen. So the people took him out, and then the Levites shut the doors to the temple so they couldn't get back in.
Yeah.
And this was taking place outside.
So this is outside the courtyard.
Yes. And while they were seeking to kill him, a report came to the commander of the company of soldiers that all Jerusalem was in confusion. At once he took the soldiers and captains and ran down to them. And they, having seen the commander and the soldiers, stopped beating Paul. Then the commander came near and took him and commanded him to be bound with 2 chains. So here is the prophecy coming true. Remember, all the people saying, look, if you go to Jerusalem, you're going to be bound.
It's not even Paul. It's not even what he did.
Yeah, he didn't do anything.
He didn't do anything.
Right. Bound him with 2 chains and was asking who he was and what he had done. And in the crowd, some were shouting this and some were shouting that, and not being able to ascertain the truth because of the uproar, he commanded him to be taken into the barracks. And when he came into the stairs, he had to be carried by the soldiers because of the violence of the crowd. For a large number of the people were following after, crying out, "Away with him!" And as Paul was about to be led into the barracks, he said to the commander, "Am I allowed to say somewhat to you?" And he said, "Do you know Greek? Are you not the Egyptian who some time ago stirred up a revolt and led the 4,000 assassins out into the wilderness?" So he's like, you're the guy. I mean, in his mind, he's thinking that is the only thing I can think of that would make these Jews so mad.
Right.
That they would want to kill this man.
Right.
You got to be that guy.
Yeah.
You got to be the Egyptian.
Mob rule.
So in 39, but Paul replied, "I am a Jew from Tarsus of Cilicia, a citizen of no mean city, and I beg you, allow me to speak to the people." And having given him permission, Paul, standing at the stairs, motioned with his hands to the people, and when there was a great silence, he spoke in the Hebrew language, saying. So 22 is going to go on to read it. First, I have here. So 3 through 6 is basically just his credentials. He says, "Look, I'm a Jew." He's given all the criteria.
I am not the Egyptian.
He's actually. Yeah, the funny thing is the Jews like, we know he's not the Egyptian.
Right,
we
exactly.
know he's worse.
Yeah, because he's one of us.
Yeah, at least the Egyptian, we can get the Romans on board to take him out. But this guy's worse. 6 through 11 is Paul just reiterating the story that happened on the way to Damascus.
Okay,
He's
so
giving
why
his
he
testimony.
became a
believer.
A believer.
A believer.
Yeah.
Really. And why he became a believer in the way, in Yeshua. All right. So first he has to set up, look, I'm a Jew, I'm a Pharisee, I'm one of you. I was raised in this city.
Right.
I am not a foreigner. I studied under Gamaliel. And then he tells about not his conversion, but his epiphany, what turned him as to being a believer.
Recognizing Yeshua as a Messiah.
Right. And then 12 through 16 just talks about the devout man Ananias, not the high priest Ananias, but the other Ananias, the one that came and was sent by the Lord to open his eyes.
Gotcha.
Yes. And then 17 and 18 was his vision in the temple. He tells about his vision in the temple of Yeshua. And here's the kicker. So in 19 and 20, he says, look, I was a persecutor, just like you're being. I wanted to persecute these people too. I thought they were the devil. Absolutely. So now let's read 21 and 23. It says, and he said to me, this is Yeshua talking to him in the vision.
Okay.
He said to me, go, because I shall send you far from here to the nations. And they were listening to him until this word. And then they lifted up their voice, saying, Away with such one from the earth, for it is not fit that he should live. So up until that point, they were listening intently, like, okay. And then when he said, and then Messiah sent me to the nations, oh, that's it.
That's right.
Gentiles, no. Think about that. So here you have the Jews under Roman oppression. They're the Gentiles. They're the enemy.
Right.
They're the world. And now one of their own is saying, no, but our means of salvation is to them too.
Let's share. The one thing we have that's ours, let's share it.
And they were like, that was it. That is what they were so mad about. And that, what they wanted to kill him over was that right there.
Right. Wow.
Yeah. So the rest of 22, the crowd is in an uproar again. So the commander says, you know what? Just go whip him. They were not very nice when they whipped. All right. I mean, we're talking bloody, bones being exposed. It wasn't a good.
And they don't go like by the Hebraic.
That's
Theirs
right.
is the 30, or is it 39?
39.
39, and at 39
Sure,
you
40.
stop, right? That's not how he's beat. They're like, who cares? We'll go until
Just
we
about kill him. Yeah.
decide to stop, just like they did with Yeshua.
That's right. That's right. So right before he was about to be beat, he says in 25, and as they were stretching him out with straps, Paul said to the captain who was standing by, is it permitted for you to whip a man who is a Roman and uncondemned? So it was against the law to whip a Roman citizen without a trial.
Gotcha.
All right. He had to have a trial first. That's why it says and uncondemned. So then this captain went to the commander and said, are you sure you want to do this? This is a Roman citizen.
Right.
To which he said, oh, no. So they put him in a
we're
very
sorry. We thought you were
plush
just
cell.
a Jew.
Yes, that's right. They did. They thought you were just a lowly Jew that they don't care about. But you're a Roman citizen. And he makes a comment. He goes, really? You're a Roman citizen? I paid a lot of money to become a Roman citizen.
Yeah.
He's looking at Paul. Paul's just very poor, and he's a Jew. There's already this very anti-Semitic, you can't.
Stigma,
there's no way that
right.
you could do it. And he's part of the poor ones. He's part of the way. So Paul says, I was born a Roman citizen. So he's even more Roman than the guy who has his fate in his hands.
Yeah.
So he takes them out of chains, and he probably bathes them and probably allows them to roam free.
Puts a little makeup on it. Oh, we're sorry. Yeah.
Yes. Probably
Just
so.
Stay in hiding till that heals.
Yes, but he knows he can't throw him back out because
Don't
he
kill
still
him.
has to get to the bottom of this.
Right.
So he decides to take him before the Sanhedrin. And that is where we're going to pick up in 23 next time. So that's all I have for you today.
It's a lot. It's good.
It's a lot of
is good.
information.
It is really good to have that history base so you know why they're responding the way they are. And
Right.
what I love is it just shows that this text and history can't be separated. And I mean by not just Acts, I mean the entire Bible. You cannot separate it from the rest of what was going on in the world.
Right. Luke is giving this to people who already have an understanding of what's happening politically.
Right.
So there's no need to say, and remember this is going on.
Right. Well, that's
and
the
remember
whole-
you guys were doing this. It's obvious that there's something in the background.
Right. And I say the whole New Testament's like that. And, all of the whole Bible's like that. But, man, when we lose our understanding of the Old Testament, what a disservice it does to reading the rest of the book.
All right. Well, that is all I have for you today. It's a little long, but I hope you bared with us, stayed with us. And
Sure you did.
we will continue our journey with Paul and all his different trials next week when we pick up in 23. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next time.
Shalom.